Before we get to today's show, I need you to do something for me real quick. Please take our listener survey to help make CityCast Chicago a more useful podcast for you. It's at citycast.fm/survey. I took it and I could tell you it ain't gonna take you that long. And when you finish, you'll be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card. Head to citycast.fm/survey to help out your favorite podcast and have a chance to get paid in just 5 minutes or less. That's citycast.fm/survey. Today on CityCast Chicago, will a metal shredder open on the Southeast Side? What's your advice for Chicago transplants, and which one is better, the park or the beach? Lead producer Simone Alise is here with me to break it all down. It's Tuesday, June 6th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Good morning, Simone. Welcome back to a little bit of, Tuesday team chats with your boy.
Love being here, Jacoby.
Let's jump into a big story that popped off at the end of last week. Give me what's the news going on with the Southeast Side and General Iron becomes Reserve Management Group, becomes Southside Recycling.
Right. So if you have been listening to CityCast Chicago since the beginning, this is a story we've been following for the past 2 years that we've been around. And that is sort of the fate of this metal scrapping facility that has been built and has been planning to operate in the East Side neighborhood on the far southeast side of the city. The city had denied a permit, sort of the final permit that would allow this facility to operate last year. And now a judge has ruled against the city in that, has said that the city should not have blocked that permit, and that that this facility should have gotten that permit and should be operating. Mayor Brandon Johnson has said that he plans to appeal this ruling. We're sort of in this administrative limbo right now with regards to permit and operating, kind of what the next step is. But for his part, Johnson has said he plans to appeal the ruling and maintain that permit denial that former Mayor Lori Lightfoot had given last year.
Yeah, with so many efforts around the city to acknowledge and to fight for environmental justice, I think it goes without saying this has been the environmental justice fight in the city over the last 5 years. Like you said, I mean, one of our very first episodes, if not our first time in the field.
It was, yeah.
On the Southeast Side with Gina Ramirez standing across from this metal shredding facility. And we were standing right across the street from homes, from a high school. But for people who might not be familiar with this story, going back as far as 2018, then it was known as General Iron, operated in the Lincoln Park neighborhood. Residents have been complaining for decades about the pollution that this facility was causing in their neighborhood and said that there was no accountability. So around 2018, General Iron and the Rahm Emanuel administration said they're going to move this metal scrapping facility out of Lincoln Park. And not just out of Lincoln Park, away from the multi-billion-dollar mega development known as Lincoln Yards. And Rahm Emanuel's administration tried to help them move to the Southeast Side, a neighborhood that for decades and decades had been known as sort of the center of Chicago's industry. But when Mayor Lori Lightfoot came in and ran on sort of keeping General Iron to hold their agreement strong, to get out of Lincoln Park, they came up with a deal that would ultimately help expedite the move by the end of 2020 to the Southeast Side. In early 2021, Southeast Side residents took up, some major protests, including a month-long hunger strike. And about a few months later in May, sort of not only bending to the pressure of residents, but also the Environmental Protections Agency came out and said, you need to slow this down. This is moving too fast. You haven't done enough to think about the health and the impact this might have on the neighborhood. And so in May of 2021, the Lightfoot administration delayed that final permit. But when the Chicago Department of Public Health officially denied the permit for the facility to operate on the Southeast Side in February of 2022, I mean, residents were overjoyed. They said this is what we have been fighting for years and years. And I mean, this was a huge fight at the time because even the alderperson in the 10th Ward was hoping that this facility would move in because as she said at the time, this was a promise of new jobs to the neighborhood. But those residents said, well, these aren't the jobs we want for the Southeast Side anymore. And I'll be honest, I mean, I knew the story wasn't completely over. They sued the city for $100 million, the recycling company. And now this ruling by a judge has sort of breathed new life into their efforts to open on the Southeast Side.
Well, and to be fair to Southside Recycling and Reserve Management Group, the who owns Southside Recycling, I think if you're a business and you've been given all signs that you're going to get a permit to operate and like you've been working with the city for several years and like you've worked together and they've said you're going to be able to operate and then to kind of have this last minute denial, like I'd be upset too. I certainly wouldn't take that lying down if I were a business that had built a whole new facility on the Southeast Side. Mm-hmm. But I think it's such an interesting case because despite that and despite sort of the sort of business agreements that were made, in addition to pressure from residents who were calling this a clear-cut example of environmental racism, moving this from, white, wealthy Lincoln Park to Southeast Side, mostly Latino, heavily industrial, less wealthy, certainly overall. But you also had the federal government, the EPA, calling this an environmental issue, and the federal Department of Housing and Urban Development calling this an issue of environmental racism specifically and an issue of civil rights. And it was the pressure from HUD that really forced the Lightfoot administration to do this second environmental impact assessment. And they actually had to enter into an agreement with HUD to basically revamp how the city makes these kind of zoning decisions and these agreements with businesses like this overall. And that's something that now Mayor Johnson has sort of inherited from the Lightfoot administration.
I think what's going to be really compelling with this judge's ruling moving forward is one of the precedents they're leaning on is they said, well, the Chicago Department of Public Health is arguing that Southside Recycling is going to be bad for this neighborhood. But they were like, what have you been doing for the last 2 decades? You haven't punished any of these other industries that are already on the Southeast Side. You all have very much rubber stamped a lot of their problems, giving these sort of petty fines out. And the judge is arguing, why now? Why are you taking this sort of huge move against Southside Recycling when you haven't done it in the past? And so I'd argue that, well, the goal is to sort of chart a new future forward. If we're trying to put a climate action plan in, we can't just focus on how we've divested from the Southeast Side, how we use it as a dumping ground. Well, we need to set new precedent moving forward. And I wonder if, Brandon Johnson says he's going to push back. But if we end up in a situation where after all of this time, after all of this protest, they're still allowed to open on the Southeast Side, I think that's going to be a shot to environmental activists and for people who want better for that neighborhood in a way that I don't think we've experienced in the last few years. I think that'll be a heartbreak and just such a monumental way for efforts in this city.
Hey, CityCast Chicago, it's Michael Ziviak. While CityCast Chicago works hard every day to connect you with the stories that matter most, I'm working in the background making sure that our listeners are connecting with the best that Chicago has to offer. So what does that look like? It means meeting with the people who make Chicago what it is. The business owners, the stakeholders, the decision makers. The Chicagoans who put together those food festivals you enjoy, the concerts you attend, the exhibits you can't miss, and who make those candles your mom can't stop talking about. If this sounds like you, let me help you get your message out to the city's best audience with an ad right here on the CityCast Chicago podcast and on our sister daily newsletter, Hey Chicago. Shoot me an email at ads@citycast.fm and let's connect.
One of the things we've been trying to do in these conversations recently, Simone, is to actually listen to the things that people send us, whether it's through voicemail, through text, through social media. And this is the time of the year when a lot of people are considering a move, maybe to a new apartment, or maybe they're new to Chicago. A while back, we asked our listeners for advice for Chicago transplants. And here's what some of y'all told us.
Hey, CityCast, this is Ed from Edgewater. I've lived in Chicago for about 8 years. My number one piece of advice, if you have a car, is to get a collapsible shovel for your trunk. You won't need it probably as much as you think you do, but when you do need it, then you need it.
Hey, that's a good one. Like keeping items in the trunk, collapsible umbrellas, collapsible shovels. Just keep the things you might need for random Chicago weather.
Really, just being prepared for Chicago weather, I feel like is a great tip. My other favorite car tip is not keeping de-icer in your car, but keeping de-icer by your door, because if you keep it in the car, it actually can freeze, which is somewhat ironic, but it happens. I also in general, any advice having to do with as the resident transplant here, I moved here 2 years ago. Any advice having to do with travel, cars, CTA etiquette, all of that. For example, I had learned the hard way that if you are at a busy intersection making a left turn, it's common to let two cars go after the light turns red, not just the one car.
And if I'm in the third position, I'm going to try and sneak up. I'm not even going to lie. I'm trying to trail that second car out. It's cost me once before, but I try.
But what I found is if you are that second car and you don't go, people will honk at you. Oncoming traffic will honk at you to go. I was shocked by this.
All right. So in addition to the practical stuff travel, Chicago weather, y'all also have some advice on just city life.
Hi, my name is Leanna. I live in Westtown, and I have advice for folks moving to Chicago. So first, it's Chicago neighborhoods. Spend time in as many of the different neighborhoods that you can find. The difference in the vibes, the restaurants, bars, shopping, all of it will definitely surprise you, and it's so much fun. Summertime Shy is the greatest place in the world. Chicago has great fests throughout the summer. I highly recommend going to as many as you can. And lastly, I really just want you to enjoy Chicago. It is the best place to call home, and we really cannot wait to welcome you here. I hope you love it as much as I do.
Making friends in a new city. I moved here in 2021, which was pre-vax. It was very still mid-pandemic. And it's hard. It's really hard. You don't know where to go. And you, even if you meet person, you're wait, so how long am I supposed to wait before I text them again? It's very of that dating feel. I never used Bumble BFF. I don't know if I could. I don't know about that.
I haven't used the apps for the friends yet, but this past weekend, because though I grew up here and I'm still friends with my best friend from 6th grade, I'm still friends with one of my best friends from kindergarten. So I'm very lucky to fall back on my lifelong friends. But a lot of the people in my circle right now are people I met since I got back from grad school. And one piece of advice that you often hear when people are talking about more intimate relationships is go do the things you love and you'll find the people that work for your circle, work for the things you're interested in. But I think that's also true of trying to find friends. Whether I'm going to a live podcast taping for the most radical news show in Chicago, or if I'm going to a day party at the Promontory, or if I'm going to a neighborhood festival over in Inglewood, one of the things I found going to these events that I like, right? Not the things that just seem, oh, this is what Chicagoans do, or this is what the apps, or this is what, the marketing material says, these are the best places to go in Chicago. Go do the things you love in Chicago, and you will find those like-minded people.
I agree with you. And I've talked on the show about my various hobbies, my forays into rock climbing and now Dungeons and Dragons. And I've met some really cool people, but I will say I could really use, and if someone out there has this, I could really use an etiquette guide again. How long do you wait to text? What's the best kind of event to invite these people to? How do you, I don't know. That next step is always the hardest part for me. I love going out to places. I'm very friendly. I love talking to people, but that next step to like becoming actual friends.
You could do the meet, but how do we get to the friendship? Nah, I'm with you 100%.
Right.
Maybe there is something in there for the newsletter, shout out to Hey Chicago. Maybe there's a podcast episode of like, not just how do you meet new people in Chicago, because we can get the meeting part out the way.
Right.
It's well, how do we build something sustainable here? And no, I agree with you. It is difficult. I mean, hell, it's hard to just keep up with the friends I do have, let alone trying to make new ones.
Oof.
Beyond friendships, beyond collapsible shovels, y'all also had some advice on how to enjoy Chicago.
Hi, my name's Maya. I live in Logan Square. And tips for how new Chicagoans can get acclimated to the city. We had the good fortune of having some friends of friends who lived here, but honestly, I really kind of started from scratch. And I went on Bumble BFF, and I actually made a really good friend. I went on some interesting friend dates. Also, working those like friends of friends connections. I feel like at my age, I mean, I'm 31, it's really hard for people to make friends outside of their friend group. And so, I mean, it just gets you out of your space and it gets you socializing, and you never know, you might make some really good friends.
Oh, that was so sweet. I mean, it goes without saying that Summertime Shy is as fire as advertised. And like this weekend is no different. From Thursday through Sunday, there are so many things happening in the city. You got the Chicago Blues Festival in the Loop this weekend. You got the Puerto Rican Fest. You got Andersonville Midsummer Fest, Lincoln Square Greek Fest, Chicago Vegandale Festival, which has been a newer vegan fest in the Loop. They're going to have Rick Ross down there performing. I don't know what he know about vegan food, but he like pears, and so he going to be down there. The Shy Soul Fest, and there are plenty of art festivals happening this weekend, from Old Town Art Fair to Wells Street Art Festival. The best place to learn about the events, the neighborhood fest, the music concerts, is to follow our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago,
Facts.
at chicago.citycast.fm. Cityman works tirelessly to bring you not only great events, but events that are spread across the city, from the far west side to the far north, all the way down to the south and southeast side. So make sure you tapped in with Hey Chicago. Is there anything on this list this weekend that you are going to stop by, Simone?
I will probably be at Andersonville Midsummer Fest. It's right, you know me, walking distance. That's how I like to be. And I was at this past weekend. I did stop by the Uptown Art Fest, which was just glorious. You talked about it last week, and got to see some murals in progress, even more murals in this great neighborhood, and stopped by the Clifton Block Party. Which was just children everywhere. It was great. Oh man, it was amazing. I loved it. Bubbles and kids and throwing balls, and I loved it.
Imagine Inglewood put on the Peace Fest on 64th and Honoree at the Peace Campus. And I mean, great resource fair. Had this amazing cipher from the great thinkers that was enjoyable. Like at one point, there was like this 5-year-old who they gave the mic to, and she freestyled for like 60 seconds. And it was amazing. She was, what Jay say about Blue Ivy, like she found these little pockets throughout the 60 seconds. That was perfect. Eventually, I do need to stop by Vegandale, though. I've driven past it the last couple of summers, and it just looks like so much is happening there. And I'm always looking for a moment to try vegan food. A festival where you get like 30 different options at once seems like the sort of perfect exposure to it. And of course, to every single person listening, if you got something you want to tell CityCast Chicago, how your summer's going, a story idea you have, or you just want to tap in and tell us, how much you love the podcast, reach out to us at 773-780-0246. And hey, you might end up hearing your voice on the podcast alongside ours. For the last couple of weeks, me and Simone have been going back and forth about how we like to enjoy our summers. Y'all might remember our most recent our little fun back and forth about rooftops versus patios. Today, we got another hot debate for you, and that's parks versus beaches. You're going to find my answer to this, and my justification is going to sound very familiar, but in a completely different way. But I want to start with you, Simone. You team park or you team beaches?
I'm team beach. Team beach all the way. I feel like we're taking reverse positions from where we were last week. Okay. Here's the argument I make. Number one, the fact that we have this beautiful lake that looks like an ocean,
Beautiful.
just right out our front door. Why would you not go and stare out at the water any opportunity that you get? Number one. Number two, like, I love our parks. We have great, like, Chicago has some excellent parks. They are so good. I love almost every single one I've ever been in. Never had a bad experience in a park. But when you say summer, I want to go to the beach. I want to be in the sand. I want to be in the sun. I want to be by the water. I want to dip in and come out and read a book. I want to be tired by the end of the day because I've just been out in the sun for so long. I want to play some beach volleyball. I want to feel like I'm on vacation just whenever I could step foot outside my door. That's what I want in my summer.
Mm-hmm. No.
And there are still relatively easy to get to. I would say easier than a rooftop in Chicago.
No, you're right.
And you still get that little bit of an elevated summer experience by being at the beach. So that's why I'm team beaches.
No, I hear what you're saying. And now my justification was rooftop. A lot of that had to do with, like, it felt exclusive, felt like you had to put some prep in, you got to plan for it. That's my exact reason for not liking beaches. I do not want to plan to go to the beach. I do not want to have to get a towel. I do not want to have to just prepare my mind for the prospect of sand in every open place on my body. I don't necessarily like dipping.
It's exfoliating.
Yeah. Put that into some body wash then, and I'll use it then. But I'm good on that, man. And again, Chicago got some decent beaches. Rainbow Beach, right? Calumet, right? Montrose, downtown, like some great beaches. But if I wanted to stare at the water, I could go to one of our amazing parks around the city of Chicago, right? I can go to Lincoln Park. I can go to Grant Park. I can go to Jackson Park. And if I want to be as far away from the water as possible and just stay in my neighborhood, whether I'm at Columbus Park out in Austin, right? Whether I'm at Douglas Park, you can still get your volleyball on out there, right? More sports are available to you at the parks, from basketball to tennis to pickleball, the sport that's taking over the city of Chicago right now.
The city.
Mini golf over at Douglas Park. You see them playing flag football down at Washington Park. You can get on your bike and do some BMX jumps down at Big Marsh Park. It just seems like your options are more plentiful. You want a conservatory? You want to pop in on the zoo? The beach seems like it just has such a fixed environment, and your options are chill out on the sand, dip your toes in the water. Last summer I went to one beach. You're not going to probably catch me at a beach until it's time to go to Oakwood for the Silver Room block party. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm team parks every single day of the week. That's my argument for team parks.
I think you make a very, very good argument. And don't get me wrong, I love the practicalities of a park. But if we're talking summertime shy, like, where am I trying to be to, like, have a summertime experience? It's always going to be the beach for me. I just have such fond memories of being at Loyola Beach up on the north side. Of course, Kathy Osterman over here by me. But also I think about when we went to Oakwood Beach to check out the Secret Mermaid, Chicago's Secret Mermaid with artist Roman Villarreal. And also all the art. There's all this interesting art along the rocks along Lake Michigan that you can find. And I just feel like it is such a pleasant summer experience. And it is something that I feel like because you don't get to really experience it for the rest of the year. I mean, you can go to the beach in the winter and in the fall.
Do you see those pictures of people running along the beach in Lake Michigan just whooping their ass?
The polar plungers. All due respect to the polar plungers and all of you out there. But, you know, especially if you can get there like on a weekday when it's not like crazy crowded and like you feel like you've really won something. There's no better feeling than that.
As always, love sitting down with you. Another thanks to our lead producer, Simone Alisea.
Thanks.
Before I let you go, I wanted to give you one more reminder to please take our listener survey. You can find it at citycast.fm/survey. In the meantime, in between time, head over to read our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, in your inbox. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you good. Go to citycast.fm and also sign up for our newsletter. I'm going to talk to y'all bright and early tomorrow. Peace. This is just for me and you. We need to get some more voicemails from below Roosevelt. Like, where my people at? Like, come on, Southsiders, far Southsiders. Give us some I'm going to just have to force my homies in South Shore to just send a voicemail every single time.
I mean, we could just ask if y'all live on the South Side, call us. We want to hear from you.